place for me, and only I can fit here because it's so small. As we get bigger and as we grow, more people can fit into that space, and that's where that spirit of competition is going to be diminished.
Okay. Well, that's pretty much all I have. I'm going to open up the floor if anybody has any questions, do you have?
Yeah, well, what would be the problem with supply? If a buyer wants to come and visit with a designer, and he wants to buy so much, and we cannot supply what he wants, is that a problem? The production?
The production, like I said, like right now I'm working out of Ottawa. If I did ever get a buyer to come in and buy a whole lot, because I don't have the major funding for myself, I would definitely have to work with them, what timeline, how much they want, kind of thing. But I would also have to factor in having to find my own manufacturer, so that could take like a month or so of research alone. But yeah, it's just the fact that a lot of buyers, they don't even know what up-and-coming designers, like who they are.
Just a question about retailers. Like, where do they fit into this? I mean, you talk about a Canadian identity, and you have places like Hudson's Bay and Sears that are, very Canadian kind of companies. Like, where do they fit into this? I know there's lots of boutiques that support the industry locally, but these guys have big money.
So that's a really good question.
Got to advocate to go after those guys.
So that's a really good question. So you just mentioned Canadian companies, huge Canadian companies that can more than invest in designers, but they buy big brand American products. These are brands that have either existed for a long time, or they have the funding, they're covered with the council, so they can afford to produce big clothing. And they're probably looking at Canadian designers, and they're looking at, we're creating an 80-piece collection over the course of 8 months. So that to them isn't speedy enough because we don't have the funds for it. So if they did get involved, you could definitely see a rise in seeing more local Canadian designers into the store.
Well, and really what I'm going is that boutique approach within a large store. So if you have the Bay, say, and they have all their different brands all over, but then they're going to have a feature, and it may be 2 or 3 local designers who are featured on the floor. So you're not looking for someone to bring in like 100 units or 1,000 units. It's understood that this is a boutique collection, and then hopefully, out of that something else comes about because you've got the foot traffic, you've got all that kind of stuff going.
It's all about the exposure.
Yeah.
Like I can contact Bay and Sears, they can look at what I've done in the past, and they can say like, oh well, you're not a big enough brand, you're not a big enough boutique. And that's the problem, because when you're in Canada, you're always staying fairly small. You can't, there's Greta Constantine, there's a couple other ones, I can't remember, but there's a lot of other ones that do go into these stores, but they're even limited with the smaller quantities. And it's all about the funding, it's about the exposure, it's about...
That's a very typical Canadian approach, right? There's a lot of immigrants in here, and how many of you have gone for a job, and the guy behind the desk, or the woman behind the desk, you got any Canadian experience? Well, I only got off the boat yesterday. How am I ever going to get it if you never give it to me? And that's the same thing. It's this horrible catch.
It's like a ripple effect, yeah.
And you just keep going around in
Yeah.
a death spiral. So I just think would a council be able to advocate that way and go and approach larger?
Of course. One thing I wanted to mention was, I know he owns a boutique in Toronto, he's Brazilian, and his whole boutique only has Brazilian designers, and every single piece was made in Brazil. Why? Because Brazil has a fashion council. Designers are able to create in Brazil, and then they also allow retailers and buyers to go open up stores outside of Brazil, such as Canada, and sell Brazilian-made clothing. And you see it all over, not just in Brazil, but Europe and Asia. So I think the council would be implementing stuff like that, where boutique owners and buyers and retailers have that funding to go and sell Canadian brand clothing outside of Canada. And it's not just Canada Goose or Bocage or whatever, but like ready-to-wear clothing. And that actually, back to the whole international thing, I was going to ask Ornella a question, or even Megan, in regards of blogging, because one of the bloggers, you guys may know her, she's very popular here in Ottawa, YOW City Style. She was invited by the Israeli embassy, I believe it was last summer, to go to Tel Aviv Fashion Week. When was the last time we've heard of the Canadian embassy in the Middle East or Asia, Africa, anywhere, inviting bloggers to come to Canada for Toronto Fashion Week, Montreal Fashion Week, whatever, you know, bloggers from here are invited to all these different conferences and shows in the States and Europe. Why do we not have the Canadian embassies outside of Canada promoting our, I mean, that's the whole purpose of them being diplomats. You're supposed to promote your culture outside. That's, you know, being diplomatic. So I wanted to see if you wanted to chime in on that.
Again, I think that they don't believe that in Ottawa or Canada, they don't believe that it's an art, it's a form of art, and it's so conservative. Like I don't think that they believe in us, and they think that it's an art and this is what we love to do. They're not encouraging us to do that.
And we have to remind ourselves that we're something worth promoting. I mean, if like you saw those designs coming down the runway, that's something worth promoting right there. And so many times we forget how creative we are, how artistic we are, because we're being overshadowed by these huge brands, these huge countries that have so much more wealth and ability than our industry does. But in reality, you saw those designs, they're beautiful, right? So.
I have a question. Yes. So, Renee and I actually own a boutique called Panic One. And so we're curious to know, like, as a new designer, it's important to do your research and also approach these boutiques, right? Because then that's good exposure for you. And so that's something that you thought of doing.
That's definitely something that I'm still doing the research for. I'm trying to figure out what boutiques I can go and sell at. I'm looking definitely Ottawa, but
there's a lot of local boutiques. I mean, we're all about supporting, you know, designers with talent.
the other thing with that too is in order for me to put 100 units in your store, I need funding for that 100 units. So I'm going to have to spend the next couple of months working to be able to fund, to make and produce those 100 units. So that's something, whereas if there was a council, I could easily say, I already have a boutique that wants to buy me, could you give me a loan to cover my expenses, hire a manufacturer, and then get it all done, have it in your store within 2 months.
So small boutiques though, they tend to order smaller quantities. So for us, we would never order 100. So that gives you guys a good, you know, like a stepping stone too.
Well, that's the thing, like even being in school, trying to find out what boutiques there are in Ottawa that we could sell to, there's still not a lot of information. So if I wanted to sell to your store, like I wouldn't even know, like I know you guys do accept Canadian designers, but I don't know if you expect, a lot of the stores that we have talked to, they only accept designers if they have a following. So right now I'm just starting out, I don't have a huge following. So that's something that we've been told as students that we're going to have an issue with. So that's why we're constantly trying to do online platforms like Etsy and Shopify, and now Making the Perfect Fit. And we're trying to get that whole thing going, trying to get a following, trying to make some sales so that we could go into the stores. And the biggest challenge is the funding.